Hello, my name is Randall Borden, and thank you for listening in on the podcast once again. And I'm happy to bring with to this our guest, Dorette Stevenson, and she is a life coach with Village Gate Life Coaching LLC. She has a unique approach to being a life coach, and that's what we're going to find out here. So, welcome aboard, and could you tell us a little bit about yourself to start off the conversation?
Thank you, Mr. Randall. My name is Dorette Vogel Stevenson, and I am the owner of Village Gate Life Coaching LLC, as you have mentioned. You wanted to know a little bit about my background?
Yes,
Okay, so my journey started in the Caribbean many moons ago, and I grew up in England, and I've been in America for, I think, 31 years. So I've been traveling around the world a little bit, and I also enjoy traveling, and I've also just traveled for pleasure because I just love meeting new people. I love talking with people, and it is not a surprise that I've ended up in coaching others in terms of, who want to improve their lives and their situations. I've been in social work in the field for over 30 years. And after I'm going to call it a temporary retirement, kind of like a transition, hired from my previous career with state government and actually serving others. And I wanted to continue as an entrepreneur coaching and helping others just the way I've done for so many years. It is in my nature. I just feel like that is just who I am. And I am best when I am just being myself and helping. So that's
how long have you had Village Gate Life Coaching?
I was 22, 23. Around the fall of 2023. And I decided I wanted to work for myself. And that's how I said, let me just continue in a different way. Rather than working for someone else, I'll work for myself and just continue in the helping profession.
Right, as people were coming out of COVID and rediscovering the world.
Correct. Actually, yes. Because everything transitioned to virtual, and my business is actually virtual. I think I'd mentioned earlier that I'm learning technology, still learning.
Right.
It's just a forever learning process. I am surprised I'm getting very, very skilled in some areas. I was the person that was kicking and screaming when my former career, said transition to virtual meetings because I had very large meetings that I was facilitating in case conferences. But lo and behold, once I started, I was like, oh, this is no different because I wanted to see my audience. I wanted to see what was going on in my room. And I felt that I couldn't do that virtually, but not at all. I was able to do exactly what I've done for so many years.
As far as your clients, they benefit the same, or is it a different type of benefit, or how is that different?
Yeah, I think from speaking with so many of my clients, I think they experienced exactly what I experienced. It was more convenient.
Right, exactly.
People, the world is just so busy. We're all so busy, and we're able to still, use the same language. You're still able to see someone's reactions and facial expressions. If they're upset, you're still able to see exactly what you need to see on the camera. And then, folks, as you probably know, they would probably come on camera and they just do the top half and the bottom half in their sweats.
And I think
they could be relaxed.
Yeah, it's also more relaxing. They don't have to get in the car or get cleaned up, get in the car, drive over here, find a place to park, come to the office, wait. So, yeah, and even just talking to them for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, rather than scheduling an appointment, every month. We can talk to our clients face to face. Oh yeah, we just want to update you. Want a little something? Here's a weird piece of correspondence that came in. Well, we can go over it, on the screen. These paragraphs, you should know about, and then 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. And that would never happen in the real world. They'd never drive over to the office to see 2 paragraphs of a pleading.
Right. You can actually share your screen with information, and it's just like meeting in person. So I've definitely become a fan of it. And that's why I decided to actually have my business virtually.
That's great. And I think you probably experience the same thing with your clients, that they're more, well, they're less haggard by the time they get to you, not having to do it all, get over to your office and then back home again. So,
Absolutely agree.
mhm,
Absolutely. They're just more relaxed. Less stress is all that we are all seeking, less
mhm,
stress,
yep.
because there's enough going on.
Do you see them for like about if they and need a 5 minute increment, or what do I do here? Or do you see them on regular 45-minute segments?
Yeah,
How do you
I
interact?
actually I actually offer 60-minute sessions. And yeah, 60 minutes, we're on camera. I tend to, use some of about a few minutes, kind of catching up.
Right.
How was your week and what's happened? And some, little, I call it chit chat. And
Hmm.
then sometimes that happens right at the end as well. But for the most part, this session is 60 minutes.
Hmm. Okay. Well, I guess, first beginning, what is a life coach?
So a life coach, and I will explain, I can, as much as I'll simplify it in terms of a therapist, a formal therapist,
Hmm.
and life coaching. I'll kind of
Right. Hmm.
make the comparison. So a life coach is really trying to work with individuals who are seeking very specific help with goals. They may want to change something in their relationships, for example, setting boundaries, or they're working on improving their self esteem. They may be having relationship issues, conflict and or parenting issues. There's also, with the growing elderly population, this
Hmm.
burnout with caretakers. Folks have
Right.
to take care of, elderly parents or disabled,
Hmm.
individuals, and just need someone to talk to about all of that and what they're experiencing. And that's where I come in. In terms of a therapist, which actually I am a licensed social worker, which means
Hmm.
I've actually worked as a therapist for a very short time as well. And a therapist, in terms of, you've got to have it like a state license, but also I think the main thing is you have to provide your clients with a mental health diagnosis. That's
Hmm.
the only way you will basically get paid, for your services. So there has to be some form of mental health diagnosis and the treatment and treating the symptoms. So, for instance, major depression or anxiety, there is a formal diagnosis. With coaching, it is best that the person does not have a mental health diagnosis that is being
Right.
medicated. So basically, we need someone they're probably on a more higher functioning, not to say that folks with mental health cannot function.
Right. Right. They've gotten rid of this other problem and they hand
Right.
them off to you. Yeah.
Right. And
Hmm.
it's in terms of the rules and regulations around the industry of therapy, formal therapy, ethical, rules
Right.
and different, requirements. It's very, very regulated.
Hmm.
And with coaching, I do not I do not have to provide a mental health diagnosis. And it's actually, coaching is not for that purpose.
Hmm.
It is simply someone wanting to work on a goal, and I'm here to help them reach
Okay.
those goals.
Okay. So if someone was an alcoholic or drug addict or recovering from, I don't know, losing their arm or something like that, there'd be the therapist for that. And then once they got to the point, then that therapy would be over because the insurance company isn't paying for it anymore.
Right, right,
So
right.
what do you do now? Hmm.
Right. Once the individual probably, okay, they're in recovery, they feel like they're at a great place.
Hmm.
They may be going to AA or some other kind of treatment, but they are making enough progress
Right.
that perhaps they want to just try coaching in a different way. It could be again, with people with substance abuse concerns, right?
Mhm.
They're in recovery. A lot of times they've been enablers, for instance,
Right.
right? And relationship, when they've burned so many bridges, they may just want to bring with, because of all of the issues when they were actively using. It created a lot of
Mm.
problems, and they may just want to talk to someone in a different way. Not to say that a
Right,
therapist cannot
right.
do that. Of course, if they can always just continue with therapy if they
Mm.
choose to. But if they've made enough progress and they want to try coaching, that's totally okay as well.
So, and then so somebody comes to you and they're, I don't know, unhappy with their life, say been divorced, maybe a year or so has passed, they've recovered, so to speak, from the divorce, and things are just kind of stuck. That, they've got a job, they've got a terrible apartment, nothing's ever changing. This is going to be their life for the next 10, 20 years. That's what could you do for somebody like that?
Right. So I am a very optimistic person.
Okay.
I tend to be very optimistic, and I do believe that every person had the ability to work on their lives and change things
Mm,
in their lives. I really do believe that. And so, and I am just a natural motivating person. But I think an individual in that situation, my job would be is obviously encouraging, right? I'm encouraging. I want to know the story. I'm going to start with the story.
right.
What
Mm,
got you here? How, the things that have occurred in your life to get you to this place, but
mm,
looking forward. So in terms of coaching, I'm going to try to get that person to look forward, not backwards. Once we've talked about
mm,
the backwards, we know what the issues are. Let's talk about what you can do to move forward. Is it getting a different type of job? Is it changing friends, for instance? Because sometimes when people have been in a rut, you've got some old friends that really were not helping the situation. And so
mm,
it could be simply just changing relationships, changing
mm,
self. I mean, changing how you interact with others. People do all kinds of different things, and people have developed habits that they know is not conducive to a healthy lifestyle or
mm.
fostering good relationships, right? So I do believe people can change, and that's where I come in, and we're going to talk about the specifics. What can you do? How can I help you get to a better place to feel better about your life?
And then do you set goals like lose 5 pounds a month or go out on 3 dates or things like that? Or,
Yeah, yes,
oh, okay. Oh, you set
yes.
specific goals?
I tease some of my clients. I tend to develop a pretty good relationship, and I will say, I call it, well, it's homework time, and I
Uh,
tell them because nobody wants homework, and they know that I'm joking when I use that word.
right.
Because remember, it takes us back to college and school.
Mm,
But I say there's a little homework, and it could be, I want you to write, you write down for our next session, 5 things that you love about
mm,
yourself, or that you will do before our
mm,
next session. As you said, am I going to walk? I'm going to join the gym, or I'm going to walk, around, the track
mm,
3 times, a couple of times a week, whatever that may be. And I tend to work collaboratively with folks. I try to work with where they're at, but at the same time, I'm able to push a little,
mm.
because once I develop that relationship, I will know exactly what to do. But I would never expect them to do something that I think that is impossible for them or
Right. I
where
mean,
they're.
well, they come to you saying, I'm fat, I'm ugly, don't get enough sleep, don't all my friends drop me because of took sides in the divorce, or lost custody of my kids, or I have custody of my kids and now I regret it. I didn't realize what trouble they were. And then I guess you just say, okay, well, what I'm thinking is set a goal. I want, 8 hours of sleep a night. And okay,
Mhm.
what's preventing you from doing that? And then you just say, well, go to bed at 8:30, and don't
Correct.
turn on the TV, or see if that helps. And you sort of little steps leading to big accomplishments. Or,
Absolutely, absolutely, and I'm actually, you've hit the nail on the head right there. I think when people, so many people talk to me about sleep problems,
Mhm.
And, I have a couple of questions. For instance, first one is, do you have a television in your bedroom?
Yeah.
I'm a person that I'm a big believer in it. A television should not be in the bedroom. It will
Mhm.
disturb your sleep and it will
Right.
distract you. For some people it's like, well, it tells me to go to sleep. Well, we can talk about, what else, if you insist, we'll talk about what else we can do. But it's like you said, absolutely. Folks tend to go to bed very, very late when they are really tired. They know they're tired, but there's
Hmm.
something that they're distracted with, whether it's TV or friends or whatever they're doing, and they wonder why they're exhausted when they get up in the morning.
And then, so you start with one small
Yes.
accomplishment and then build and like, okay, we got the sleep nailed. And now let's move on to losing weight. Or do you try to do five goals at the same time? Or how do you break it
Yeah,
down like
it's
that?
very important not to overwhelm my clients, and so we I call them baby steps, right? And I think it's important to know exactly, to know your audience, to know exactly who you are working with, right? And over time, a little time, you get to know a person, their personality and pretty much what they're capable of or what you think they're
Mhm.
capable of by just building that relationship. Once you have that, I will know how much if I can do two things, one thing, but I tend to
Mhm.
start small and as we're building. And then was it okay, great improvement. Let's try something else next week or the week
Mhm.
after, and we just keep on chipping away until we
Right.
get the
Mhm.
results that we need. As wherever they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
I never
Mhm.
force. My job is not to force anyone to do anything
Right.
they're not feeling comfortable with.
You came here day one complaining about this, and we've gone through, a number of steps you could take, and you didn't do any of them. Why are you here? I mean, I can't make a miracle in your life, without your help. So maybe you're fired as a client. Have you ever had to do that?
As a client,
To
well,
fire a client? Yeah.
I have not actually got to that place yet. Way back in my previous life,
Oh yeah.
how to get to that. But in terms of my coaching, no. I mean, people do they have reasons for behaving a certain way,
No.
right? And if they're not making the progress that both of us probably know that they can,
Mhm.
then we're going to have a conversation. We're going to have a conversation, and sometimes that can get
Mhm.
difficult. It can, and really trying to find out from folks, is this what you really want? Do you want to do this? Because sometimes people think that they wanted to do something or change something, but
Mhm.
they're simply not ready. And just from experience and just trying to, as I said, build that relationship, I will know
Mhm.
by just having that discussion, we know where they're at. And sometimes they're just not ready right now.
Mhm.
It's maybe, and then I'll say is, oh, well, maybe we can try that next year or in a few months when you think you're at a
Mhm.
different place. But I've not actually had to do
Mhm.
that yet. So
All right.
hopefully we
All right.
won't get there.
Okay. What is the most common or frequent, that's what I'm trying to, customer that you have or a problem that's brought to you?
Well, I've actually, not say unfortunately for, very, very sad situations, I've had individuals who have actually lost loved ones,
Hmm.
including children, and, divorce. That is very, very sad for most people. It is obviously a breakdown of a significant relationship, but
Right.
those are the main types of situations that I get. Also working with folks who having problems at work, with managers or people in charge, supervisors, and kind of talking through those types of situations and how to be able to keep your job or keep yourself sane.
Or deal it if you can. I mean, around here, Northern Virginia, everyone's terrified of the government and, they're going to have a job and they're working from
Mhm.
home. So they were doing fine with their family. Well, now they have to go back to work and, who's going to take care of my kids and, that kind of thing. So it's very
It's
worrisome.
it's challenging. Definitely, this situation is very challenging
Hmm.
because That is in terms of, they had a babysitter, they had to drop the babysitter off, they had a routine.
Right.
And for so many years, folks have been working from home and it was
Hmm.
just different. And now they have to go out there back in the workplace. And that's where some people have decided I think it is best that I stay home and my husband or significant other. I can't because never mind the price of daycare. I'm sure I have no idea what it is these days, but it has always been very expensive. And for some
Right.
people, they say it's just not worth me going to work. I might as well stay home.
Yeah. Or
That comes up.
or moving or around here, how the rent prices are crazy. And just being, forget about being able to qualify for a house, just paying the rent and it looks like an apartment. You don't get that, nice place to raise a family. You might have a playground down on the ground floor, but that's about it. And there you are. And that's where you're going to be because you're never going to get a promotion. You're lucky if you be able to keep your job. It's a squeeze. I mean, you're being crushed from all sides. And then when you're in the middle of whatever I'm bringing, a divorce or defending them in a divorce or child support recalculating or losing custody or getting custody. I don't know how people do it. I mean, it's just they're crushed from all different sides.
Yeah, many people, I hear this a lot, are just spending most of their
Yeah.
paycheck on rent. It is absolutely,
Hmm.
it's just amazing. 23, 2,500
Oh,
for a one
yeah.
bedroom. It is, and that's, I've heard 3,000 in some places, states. I have friends, throughout the United States, and it's unbelievable the price of rent, what it's costing them to lease a place. I wonder how they're coping. I cannot imagine how difficult that must be.
Mhm.
And, the price of grocery, obviously, on top
Right.
of that.
Everything else. Yeah.
And needing your vehicle, a reliable vehicle to back and forth now that you're expected to return to the
Yeah.
office.
I mean,
It's,
oh, I'm going
it's
to
a
move,
challenge.
2 hours from here. And like, well, plus and minuses, is the court going to tolerate an extra 2 hours for exchange of your kids? Is your
Mhm.
spouse going to be going to court for changing custody and you're going to be on the road for how long? And where are the kids going to be? You think you can still get into town and do afternoon visitation when you're driving 2 hours each way? And I'm only temporary in their life, I'm just like, look, this is
Mhm.
the way the court's going to look at it. I'm sorry, but maybe you can't afford to get divorced. Maybe you should stay together and just, I don't know, build a wall down the middle of your place and just deal with it, or tell me how you're going to get this miracle money to pay for your new life.
And I guess some people, I have definitely heard that
Mhm.
some people do decide they've got to just come up with a different plan. If it's safe, if it's something that
Mhm.
can be salvaged. I mean, it sounds like it's it's much cheaper to
Right.
do it that way. But we do understand that some marriages do break down, and to the point that it's just not sustainable. And then if you have situations like domestic violence, then
Oh, yeah,
that's
that's totally
that's
true.
a, that's a
Right.
total different
Right.
beast.
Analysis. Mhm.
So I understand that some people, there is no trying to mediate and figure this out. They have to separate and go their separate ways and
Mhm.
figure out. But people do, they're able to bounce back and start new lives.
Right.
It's not impossible. Of course, I've met many folks who have been divorced, and they figure it out because
But
life goes on.
I'm at the beginning of that journey because, we've got a trial coming up in 6 months and you got to fill out this income and expense sheet and we got to put numbers on here. And the numbers you can't have a red number down here at the lower right corner. You're going to have to convince the judge you can afford to live. And if you hope to get custody of the children, how is this going to work out? You've got an old car that's going to break down. You're going to get a roommate. You can move in with your parents, move in with your children. I don't know. I mean, these are all, if you want spousal support, we're going to have to show these hard numbers. If you want to go back to school and have your spouse pay for it, get me some tuition, have a plan. We've only got a few months to get all this stuff together and let's go. You know, Otherwise, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do for you? Do you want to go back to school and study accounting? If you do, get me a schedule from a college or a community college to show an accounting class or an accounting certificate and how long is it going to take and how much is it going to cost. Now we've only got 5.5 months. So I guess I'm the bad guy.
So, no, Mr. Randall, you are, in fact, you're a lawyer, but you're a social worker. That's
That's right.
what you're wearing, just like lots of so many of us,
Right.
you're multiple hats here. But that is what you're trying to do. You're trying to be the lawyer, but
Mhm.
you're having to try to figure out, these situations as well and what is best. And
Right. Hmm.
it sounds like some of those situations are almost impossible because there is no good answer for them,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
That's social work sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, leave the area, go back, live with your family. They got a place for you to live, $500 a month rent for a single family house. That's not a bad life. Figure out what you can do, start over from that point, but you're not going to make it up here. You cannot financially make it happen unless you want to rent a basement apartment and live in somebody's basement, which
Right. Yeah.
people do.
Yeah. Folks are pretty resourceful. They figure out and do what they have to do.
Well,
Whatever,
eventually.
except it has to be when children are involved, it has to be safe,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
We know
Mhm.
we know that you've got safety issues going on. That's not going to work. So yeah, it is. Sometimes it's almost an impossible. Is it what is the right answer? What is it? You know
Mhm.
that individuals can do, especially in the situation that you're describing.
Right.
It's very
And
difficult.
I've got I always have a deadline. And that's the thing. I have a trial date, I have a hearing date, I have a divorce, I have there's going to be literally a judge that's going to judge you
Right.
and help me get ready for that moment. And it's all going to boil down to 90 minutes. Maybe we get 2 days, maybe 3 days, and that's it.
Right.
And people say I'm
Deadline.
going to
Deadline.
appeal it, but it's tough.
It is. Life can be very challenging. I have a saying that says life has its twists and turns, and you just have to twist and turn with it.
So in your I guess more relaxed, you can kind of pace the people as they would benefit the best from it. So how do you measure success? I mean, does a person start off saying, I want to lose 100 pounds, and then after 2 years they do, or how does that work?
Well, let's hope it doesn't take two years, right?
100 pounds. I mean,
That's a lot. That's a lot of coaching. But I think weight loss is a little challenging, and I don't come across that one too much.
mm,
Usually, that's like a secondary thing, issue because I'm working on something else, and then they just happen to mention,
mhm,
trying to do this. But for some situations, I have this just a scenario. I have this situation with a particular friend who love to borrow money, right? Ask me to for a loan, and I really don't like that, right? I'm just kind of using just a general
right.
story, and how can I say no, right?
Mhm,
It's
mhm,
those boundaries again. So if I say, well, you may need to just have that straight talk, with
mhm,
that person. Do you need me to help you with some budgeting? Because I'm pretty good at that. Or, do you need me to do something else, right? To help you? What can I do to
mhm,
help you? Because I cannot keep on lending you money.
right.
It's not a good plan. It's not a plan at all, really. And so in the next session that we have, the client says, oh, you know what? Made up name. Susie says, asked me to loan her $200. And I said no, or I gave her 150 or I gave her 100. And
Right.
no, I didn't give her the 200. Even that is progress. If you didn't
Mhm,
do the 200 and you've been doing that for a while, every time she asks, progress. So then we have to get to, well, how do we get to zero? Ask somebody else or figure out the problem. Let me sit and do a budget with you so that you can manage your money better,
right.
that you're
Mhm.
not having to borrow all the time. Just an example.
Or get rid of that friend and problem solved that way.
That is also setting a boundary,
Hmm.
right? Get
Hmm.
as I I think I said earlier on, get some new friends. Sometimes there are situations where you are having an issue because of the friends that you have chosen. And we can always unfriend folks. We don't have to be stuck with people. Actually, not just friends or family. It
Hmm.
depends, and it's boundaries is not setting boundaries to me is part of self-respect. It is part of self-love, and it's also taking care of self. Because if you continue to do something that you really do not like to do and you're suffering and you know that you need to set a limit, you're invited to some place you really don't want to go, but
Hmm.
you're finding yourself every time doing
Right.
all things that you don't want to do, and then you become angry with yourself and seething inside, then that's a problem. And so you can change, you can say no, and it isn't being selfish and it's not being mean. It is
Yeah.
just taking care of self. Sometimes you're just exhausted and you cannot go to that baby shower or wedding or whatever
Mhm.
invitation place you've been invited to. Sometimes you just don't physically have it.
And
Mm-hmm.
then the other way around is a real friend wouldn't force that on you, you
Absolutely.
know?
That
So maybe you don't have maybe that person isn't a real friend, or they'd understand you send a gift instead of going in person, and it's good enough.
absolutely.
And a real friend would understand that. And not if you're alcoholic, they don't take you to they don't invite you to go out drinking with them. Maybe Saturday morning coffee or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Mhm.
It's really just being mindful of others, right?
Mhm.
That's what it is, as you said. You don't someone who struggle with certain issues. You just don't push that in their face. You don't rub
Right.
that in their face. You try to be a good friend or a good family member, and
Mhm.
I don't think no, I won't even suggest this or that
Mhm.
because that person's struggling in that area.
Once they stand up to that moocher that wants the money, then you kind of move on to taking charge of other aspects of your life. And maybe I should cut up my credit cards, and because they're
Mhm.
kind of doing the same thing too.
Yeah, I mean, the saying goes, prevention is better than cure, right?
Hmm.
So if you struggle in a certain area, then there's certain things you have to literally cut off. I
Hmm.
think the scripture says, "Cut your hand off." Right? If the right hand offend you, cut it off, kind of thing. I mean, not literally, but
Right.
it does say that. But it means if something you're struggling really in this area, right, and you know what to do. There's also the saying about if you stay in a barber shop long enough, you'll get a haircut. So
Hmm.
if you continue to be in a certain situation and you know that you struggle with it and you keep on putting yourself in there, then
Right.
it is a recipe for disaster, isn't it? So
And then that launches you on another step and another step. And maybe I should go to a financial planner, just
right.
kind of to tell me, and where am I going to be in 10 years? And do I really want to eat cat food when I'm retired? Or maybe I should put away another $50 a month
Right.
or.
And it is amazing when, to see people make even small progress, right?
Mhm.
And the motivation that comes with that for you to take, the next step and deal with this other thing and set boundaries around this or changing this or, as you said, developing a budget, a written budget instead
Right.
of the one
Mhm.
head, right? Put it in
Mhm.
writing. And once you've put something in writing, a lot of times we tend to be more committed to it because we can
Mhm.
see it. And especially if you try to read it, just put it in a place where you can see it every day, you're more likely to change that
Mhm.
habit or
You
that
can go down a spiral downward, but you can also go on a spiral upward. You
I
know?
absolutely agree. Earlier, I absolutely believe people can change. I've seen it many, many times. I mean, I have lost count. People have the ability to do well and can change situations and circumstances in their lives to be
Mhm.
better. Yeah, and it's really very uplifting for me when I see that and they're happy and you're happy. And yet it was them that really did the work. All I did was I just coached them along and
Yeah.
encouraged them and empowered them, and they did the work. And so that's why I absolutely believe it's there. It's always been there. It
Mhm.
just takes someone else
All
to
right.
sometimes something that I feel that I do very well in my work is being able to read people really well, my
Hmm.
intuition, and just getting to know them and what I think their strengths are. And I can pick up on that pretty well. And sometimes I will share and they will say, "Oh yeah. Yeah, but I
Mhm.
think I forgot I was great at this thing or that thing." That it's there. In a lot of people it is there, and that's the beauty of coaching, because you're able to pull things out, and you have more time. I think it just feels different than formal therapy, and formal
Mhm.
therapy is absolutely necessary for so many people, and very helpful, but coaching also is complements it really, really well once you know what you're doing and
Mhm.
how it's done, as I
Yeah.
said.
The next step. Okay, that's great. You've got
Right.
this little victory now, so let's get another one. Let's
Hmm.
keep going. You're not going to stop. This is not the point to stop in your life. Let's keep going.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. As I said, is people have the ability to change things in their lives, and even some of the things that seem impossible. And there are things that you may never change. Let's be real. There's just things in life that will not change.
Hmm.
And we certainly cannot change anyone, but we can
Right.
change ourselves. We can change, how we respond to a situation. No matter who you are or what your situation is, you can change something. So the friend or the so-called friend that is doing something that
Right.
is not working for you, you can remove yourself from that
Hmm.
relationship. No one can stop you from that, and remove yourself. And so we cannot control anyone, but we can absolutely have control over ourselves.
And then maybe get a little closer to the friend that goes to the gym.
Right. Oh,
Right. The one that's always bugging you about your diet. Or I
right.
know. Now I'm ready to listen. Go ahead.
Now I'm ready to listen. You just made what you just said about now I'm ready to listen,
Right.
right? Remember, I said earlier that sometimes the time is not
Yeah.
right, for that individual. It's not because they cannot do it, they're not ready for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It could be a million reasons why they're not ready. And we have to work together, talk about certain things, and tease that out to figure
Mhm.
out where the blockage is right now.
Yeah.
And as I said, it could be in 3 months' time, that person may
Mhm.
be at a different place and they're ready. They're ready. It's like the alcoholic, right? You cannot force someone to stop drinking until they are ready to start working on that,
Mhm.
right? They have to walk.
Then you want to step in and so they don't fall back, or that
Right.
they keep getting, the improvements and any kind of a system. But obviously AA is tried and true, but
Mm-hmm.
something keep them moving forward.
Right. And formal therapy, because
Mhm.
we know, just with these situations in terms of addiction, a lot of times, and even with things that people want to, need to work on, a lot of these things, problems stem from trauma, past trauma, right?
Mhm.
Most of us have at least three A's,
Uh-huh.
right? There's trauma in their, in their past,
Mhm.
and some people try to self-medicate, and whether it's alcohol, drugs, or whatever it is.
Yeah, bad behavior. Yeah.
Right, the behavior comes, and you
Mhm.
have to get to the root of that. But again, they have to be ready to address these concerns.
How often do you see somebody? Is it once a week, once a month, or
When I first start out with a client, I recommend weekly.
no?
And in turn, as I see them progressing every 2 weeks, and there's some people I have once a month, because
Mhm.
they still need guidance, because they were, but they've made so much progress that it's not necessary to meet weekly. I will make that call. I will make that suggestion, or they
Mhm.
they certainly can do that as well.
Right.
But I will say, I think you're at this, and we will have to agree, because if I say, well, I think you'd be okay at every 2 weeks now, and that person said, no, 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 I think I still need you weekly. That's okay, and
Mhm.
we can also work on. Always, everyone has something to work on,
Right.
so
Right.
we can
Mhm.
always figure it out. But again, I tend to like to work with my clients in a way that we're working together. It isn't
Mhm.
telling them what to do. It is we're working together to resolve whatever the concern is.
And I wouldn't apologize for this. I wouldn't be a lawyer if I didn't ask this. The confidentiality.
Oh, that is a must. Oh,
Can you get dragged into court? Are your records confidential? What's your,
yeah, well, coaching, well, you see, this is where the difference is between therapy and
Mhm.
coaching. So, and I haven't had to do any of that, but the record keeping is very, very different. This is where, it's not regulated in that way. I make my notes, and when I start working with an individual, one of the first things that I actually conversation that I have is around confidentiality. Whatever we are talking about is between you and I,
Right.
right? And I don't have to turn anything over to anyone,
Mhm.
because unless it is because I'm actually a licensed social worker as well. Unless it is something that is someone is going to get hurt or they're going
Right.
to hurt themselves,
Yeah.
we're talking about that. That's a totally different issue. Very, very serious.
Right.
It's just conversations about someone's personal life, right? It is very, very different. And so confidentiality is a big deal and a must for me. I absolutely believe that
Mhm.
it is crucial for whether it's a therapist or a coach, for you to be very careful with other
Right.
people, other folks' lives and situations and
Mhm.
information.
But I mean, could a divorce lawyer subpoena you to come in and reveal what you talked about?
It has never happened, and I really have never come across that situation in my work so far, and I hope I never have to. I really don't think so, because I think you, as a therapist, you can
Mhm.
be asked certain things, but I think a life coach, as I said, it's no one's going to get hurt. In terms of someone you saying they're going to hurt themselves or hurt someone else, there is really nothing to really discuss or disclose. Someone talking to me about they want to work on their self-esteem or their boundaries, or it's I don't see where that wouldn't have a place in someone's divorce proceedings. I actually don't know full answer to that, but
I don't know the answer either. Yeah.
I would think absolutely not.
Mhm.
Absolutely not. And I would be kicking and screaming with that one. I think that's totally unethical and not appropriate, because I'm not working within the system. Coaching is not part of the system. I'm not regulated by the system. And therefore, I would not. I would say the answer is no to
Mhm.
that.
All right. Okay. Again, I'd had to ask. So,
Yeah, as I said, I have no experience of that happening. And I would think the answer is absolutely not, because
mhm.
I cannot see, just based on my years of experience, even as a social worker in the
Mhm.
social work field, I don't see how. So, and again, even in social work, you're working for the state government. It's government,
Mhm.
not a government. It's not regulated. It's myself and my client. So
Mhm.
I don't see how I would disclose anything that they're talking to me about, unless, as I said, someone is in danger.
And then how long does life coaching go on? Life? I mean, is there an end date or anything like that? Or,
There isn't any kind of set, this is Millie and we're going to work for 6 weeks. It doesn't work that way. Each week we meet, or every 2 weeks that we meet, I assess the progress. They assess,
Mhm.
they think about, we have discussions. Where do you think you're at? And or I know I can see you're at this, or you're not, you're struggling in this area,
Mhm.
or you're improving in this area, and then we decide together when we end those sessions. But it could be a few months, and sometimes folks come in and say, I would just like to have 3 months of talking with you about this
Mhm.
concern. It is a collaboration, and we make that decision together.
Mhm.
Because, as I said, I may feel that individual is really ready for discharge. I feel like they've kind of got to, where they need to be. They may say, no, well, in that area, but I may need something else. All right, I want to, this is helpful to me. It's helping me in my general life, and I want to continue.
Mhm.
That's okay. That is absolutely okay.
And
Uh,
then instead of once a week, once a month,
yeah,
every couple
yeah.
of months.
And so remember I said earlier, so we started once a week, but I just taper it down and I say, well, maybe we just need to meet once a month, because you've
Mhm.
made so much progress, right? Or every 6 weeks or something. Life happens, and so sometimes some people just trickle off and they fade away after a
Right.
while. You
But
know,
then you also, with this virtual, you now have the advantage that even if the people move, they're still here, right? So
Exactly.
it's not like you from your office anymore. Yeah.
Right, right. And so another difference between therapy and coaching, in therapy, you cannot do that because each state have their own, there's a license for each.
Oh, oh.
So that's the difference. Yeah, a very big difference actually, because I'm licensed in Massachusetts because that's where I
Ah,
used to be.
okay. Yeah. So if you move
Yep.
out of another state, you've got to get a new,
Right.
unless you find somebody that's licensed in
But
both.
but
Yeah.
that would be for therapy, not coaching.
Right. Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that those are the big differences because each state have their own license for
Hmm. Hmm.
therapy for each therapist. My license is actually in Massachusetts. Yeah.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
you could stay with somebody for the rest of their lives.
If that's what they want to do, which
Right.
I mean, you think it depends on what they're working on. But
Yeah.
but I, as I said, I haven't gotten that old. I haven't got that old yet to
Yeah.
know.
May not want to.
It has been 180 years. Oh boy,
Yeah.
I'm wearing well.
That's right. Well, they all this crazy talk about AI, you just incorporate yourself into an avatar and you're there forever.
That's right.
Yeah, it's some
Yeah.
crazy suggestions that they're talking about. Who doesn't need a life coach? Is there anyone who would not benefit, or is there somebody you wouldn't take, or
Right. Oh, I would. You remember I mentioned about someone who has a formal diagnosis. They've got severe mental, a schizophrenia, a person suffering with schizophrenia.
Mhm.
They're not medicated. They're spiraling. They're whatever. Very
Mhm.
severe mental health issues. I wouldn't be able to work with that, and I would have that conversation with them
Right.
because what I do is I offer like a 15, 20 minute consultation
Hmm.
before I accept an individual as a client.
Right.
And so from those conversations, I will know whether I'm able to work with them or not. And
Mhm.
it's not because I can't, it's to do with licensing, but it's also to do with their condition. And I'm a coach, not a therapist in this particular
Right.
situation. And so I would say, and I do have colleagues who are,
Hmm.
they work with in a therapeutic way, even though, as I said, I'm trained and licensed. I do have therapeutic training, which I think is a unique piece of my coaching because I actually have that other part to add to it. While I'm not using it in that way, but I do have, colleagues who
Hmm.
I can refer folks to and say, I think you would be best suited to seek formal therapy because
Right.
of your
Mhm.
and your current concerns.
Like around here, it's they're ordered to take a parenting class in a
Correct.
contested custody. If there's domestic violence, they're ordered to take anger management, or
Hmm.
they'll go supervised visitation, but only for a year. That's as long as the center will take them.
Hmm.
And then what? Are they better? Are they, can you show the judge that you're ready for unsupervised visitation, overnights? What was your problem back then? If alcohol, drugs, well, I've been clean, you can test me, drug testing or do it yourself and bring it into court. But then like, okay, here you are, and you only get your kids 4 days a month, and that's the way it's going to be. That's your life now. And you really can't move away. You're always going to be paying child support until they're 18 or 19. And what are you going to do now? And then that would be, your dead end life for the next, and until your kids are 18 years old. And,
And some individuals, they have, for most people, they have to accept
yeah.
that is the law. This is how it works, and this is the situation they have. And
Hmm.
do they like it? No, but
Yeah.
it is what it is, as the saying
Hmm.
goes. Right? It is. That must be extremely challenging. I cannot imagine, but
Hmm.
it is what it is. It's a situation that you make do and make the best of, right? Because I think even in the most difficult and challenging situations, as I said, people do move on after
Hmm.
divorce. Even bitter divorce battles do move on and actually live successful lives and new
Hmm.
lives. So there is hope. There is hope, even though it seems hopeless, but there is for some people. Some people start different relationships and actually, whatever the previous issues they were having, they don't somehow have it in this relationship, or they've learned, or whatever the the reason is why they've changed. Some, as I said, people can change if they really want to, or if it's they're addressing
Hmm.
the issues that brought them to the issue, the problems in the first place. It's that willingness, I think. It's that willingness to work on whatever it is that they need to work on.
And, they have a plan. They could
Mhm.
get remarried. Now you've got two incomes.
Right?
You can afford a house,
Mhm.
and then something happens. You go back to court, change custody. I've seen that happen too. Now I have a better house than the other spouse and more stable family and better for the kids.
Mhm.
Kids become teenagers. They don't want to stay with the old parent. The grass is always greener. They want to switch custody. And the judge will say, I can't do it. They're teenagers. You can't control them. I can't control them. So, yes, go live with the other parent.
I think one very serious issue I think that I've come across with some folks is the becoming, bitter and vindictive, right? Especially when children are involved, pitting, children again,
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
kind of having children take sides. I think that is really unfortunate.
It happens. Yes.
When possible, it's best to leave children out of grown
Hmm.
folks, as they would say, grown folks' business, and not try to have them, take sides, because that stuff can go into their own
Hmm.
adulthood, right? And cause severe problems. And so
Right.
I think whenever possible, and if it's possible, to have a peaceful parting of the ways, if possible, and just even if they don't have a relationship or even in speaking terms, just you go your separate ways, and try to not spend so much time, and most of your time,
Money.
just churning this over, and the bitterness that does not, it's not helpful to anyone, and it's certainly not helpful to the individual, and it just causes more problems. And
Right.
so the goal is to accept this is what it
Hmm.
is, especially when the divorce is over. I think
Right.
until when it's in progress, when the proceedings, when it's in progress, then you might decide to do something different. But once it's
Hmm.
final, it's what it is, and you are now divorced, and you now have to, each party have to
Hmm.
decide what they are going to do in terms of
But
moving.
even then, you can build from that point.
Absolutely.
You got to reverse your thinking and move forward. And hey, Dad's teaching golf lessons. I'd like to go learn golf with Dad. You could it's kind of
I've
obvious tactic, but yeah.
I've actually, as I said, I know many folks who have gone through a divorce, and
Mhm.
they're absolutely fine. It's just a different new life. It's a different way of, they're just not with that individual anymore.
Mhm.
It is, and they're able to be successful, new job, new life, new house, new
Right.
whatever. Even
Mhm.
from very devastating situations, they lost everything, and they had to go and probably move back with parents or
Right.
whatever. It doesn't mean that's not impossible for
Mhm.
that, situation like that, for a person to end up getting their own apartment again, or house, or whatever.
Mhm.
Life can change. Life has its twists and turns, and so
Right.
we have to stay hopeful.
And even things that, you could get an expungement of your criminal record, after a certain time period of staying out of trouble, that might be granted. There's always a plan, there's always a ladder out of the hole. I think you just have to believe that, and hopefully at some point, like you're ready to go. You're ready to take that step and then
Yeah.
get back to a happy life again.
I've actually seen couples who actually became better friends. They divorced,
Hmm.
but they work together for the children, and they speak to each other. They still involved. I mean, family gatherings, because
Hmm. Oh,
of
yeah.
course, when two people come together, they've got their families, and people. Some people get very close.
Hmm.
They are extended family,
Right.
and
I've even
so
seen it where the ex-wife, girlfriend, and then they seem to be pleasant.
seem to be pleasant.
Yeah.
Yes, I've definitely seen that as well. And
Hmm.
so, folks, what is it? Different strokes for different
That's right.
folks. So
So yeah, there's always a way up or a way out, or you just gotta. And again, with virtual, with a life coach, it could last as long as it needed.
it's as the individuals,
Hmm.
the coach and the client.
Right.
It really up to the two of us. And
Hmm. That
you know,
bothers me a lot. Like, what happens to these people? they're done. The case is over. Hopefully they paid their bill. And then what? Where are they now? What are they doing? What are the kids doing?
Yeah,
Does
yeah.
the daughter go this way or that way? Is the kid now in a juvenile detention center because daddy wasn't around, the son because daddy wasn't around, or is he captain of the chess team? You just don't know what
You
happens
don't
to
know.
these
Yeah,
people,
and you have no control over that, right?
Mhm.
I think as a coach for myself and you as a lawyer, you do the best you can for your client. That's all you can do. You do your best,
Right.
and clients, folks, they are the experts of their own lives. We're
Well,
not.
sometimes they don't really know what's best for themselves.
Right. But
Don't yell at the judge.
yeah, yeah. But what I'm saying is they know their lives much better than
Oh
we
yeah. Mhm.
because we only know what we're told, right?
Right.
At the end of the day. And so we have to, as I listen to their story, what they want,
Mhm.
and you in terms of
Mhm.
yourself, you're using the law, and I'm
Yeah.
using my
Mhm.
judgment based on what the information they shared with me
Yeah.
to help them to be their best selves. And that's all I can do. That's all we can do is to be respectful and help to the best of our ability. And for the most part, it works out, or folks decide to do other things. But
Mhm.
so far, it's been very positive.
Okay. Well, I think on that more positive note, we would wrap it up. So I really appreciate it. I really was interested in knowing, what you do and how you help people. And it sounds, I'm glad your job is around. Let's put it that way.
Randall, and it doesn't feel like a job.
Well, even better. Touche.
Right? It doesn't feel like a job
Uh,
because it is, for the most part, folks, as I said, when you get to a certain point where you're asking for help,
mhm.
it tells me that you're, in a different way. No one is saying to you, you have to go to therapy or else you're not going to, the other. They're choosing. They're choosing.
Mhm.
So that gives you a little indication there that they are functioning at a certain level,
All right. Mhm.
see a need to get the help. And so even with very, very difficult life stories, I don't see it as a job. I just
Mhm.
see it as something that, because I enjoy helping. I enjoy helping others, and so I've always been this way. And
All right.
so, and some of my clients are they're just unique and absolutely wonderful individuals with
Mhm.
lots of skills. And so I enjoy that. I liked, very talented. Some people are very talented and they're very skilled and hold, very important jobs and careers and
Mhm.
retirement and all of that. And
All
so
right.
it is encouraging to see folks doing well. And that's my goal. I want all of my clients to do well. I thank you
Mhm.
for inviting me to your podcast. And this was fun.
Yeah, it was. Thank you very much for coming.